Welcome back to the Empowerment Junction podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Bassi, recording from Manchester, England. I truly hope you've had a lovely week and that you've taken a moment to breathe, reflect, and realign. Today, we are continuing with Series 2, Debunking the Lies. A journey into the falsehoods many of us have carried since childhood. These are the quiet narratives that shaped our sense of worth, our opportunities, and the limits we placed on ourselves. But here, we confront them head on because before we can truly grow, we must unlearn. Now, I'll start by saying childhood is supposed to be a beautiful time. And truly, for many of us, it's been a time of laughter, curiosity, and imaginations. But for others, it's more complicated. Still, I want us to pause and reflect on childhood through the lens of innocence, that precious window when the world feels full of wonder, when dreams feel limitless, and our biggest concern is what's for dinner, or when the next cartoon is on, or when I'm going to get a present, or if I'm even going to get a present this year. Just picture that back in those days for those who had that sort of beautiful, happy childhoods. Anyway, as children, we are naturally curious. We trust that what we are told is the truth. We believe the stories we hear, from magical tales about Santa to phrases like, "Eat your food, there are children starving in Africa." Now that one always sat uncomfortably with me. Africa is a continent, vast, diverse, rich in culture and complexity. Reducing it to a single narrative of poverty isn't just inaccurate. It's lazy, harmful, and rooted in colonial stereotypes. It's like saying, "Eat your food, children in Europe are starving." Because if we remember, there was a great famine in the 1300s. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But that's the kind of skewed logic many of us have been fed and continue to be fed without question. Now, I won't dive into colonization or historical distortion just yet. These episodes are of their own, and trust me, they're coming. Yes, they're coming. That one, it's war and peace, that one. But it's coming. But anyway, for today, I want to stay with that early mindset, that space of possibility, before the world began telling us who we couldn't be. Because sometimes healing and transformation begin when we reconnect with the version of ourselves who dared to dream. Many of us were told as children, many of us, put your hand up. I can see my class if I ask them, put your hand up. Just about everybody. You can be anything you want to be. Just work hard, follow the rules, and success will follow. And this is the script. You've got to follow. Follow it. Follow these rules and success will follow. But what happens when the system itself is rigged? When the playing field was never level to begin with? And that's where we're going today, into the uncomfortable but necessary conversation around class and education inequality. Let's talk about the lies we were taught and the truths we now need to uncover. Now back to childhood, where I started from. I want you to imagine this: two children born on the same day. One in a townhouse somewhere down south. The other one in a council flat in, let's say, Bradford. Now, their chances in life, or what would their chances in life be? Because remember, during our childhood, we've got the promises, oh, work hard, you believe what you're told. But let's now go into the reality of this. Now, I want to break it this way. For me, what I've come to find out now, that's not chance. Because these two children are worlds apart, let's be honest. Let's be honest, because that's where inequality starts. It starts from the minute they're born. And it's embedded in our system. It's embedded from cradle to career. From the very beginning, their worlds unfold differently. One child is surrounded by stability, private healthcare, enriching activities, and a safety net of support. Their parents understand how the system works because they helped shape it. Yeah? Okay. The other one is navigating life in an underfunded neighborhood where schools are overstretched, opportunities limited, and dreams too often shaped by survival, not ambition. Now, this is the reality of wealth inequality in the UK, and it's no accident, it's structural. It's systemic, it's designed. The education system here mirrors the same divide. It's stratified, carved in two worlds, one paved with privilege, private fee-paying schools and legacy access to elite universities, the other one, a tougher road where talent alone often isn't enough. Now, let me tell you about someone I recently mentored. They shared their story with me and it brought so much flooding back because their journey really mirrored my own. Now, she grew up in a working class household where education wasn't just a goal. It was the only way out, but the road wasn't smooth. No. And she knew that. From early on, she noticed something. The system didn't just see her brilliance. It saw her accent, her postcode, her parents' jobs. She worked hard, harder than most, but she was still labeled by the clothes she wore, the contents of her lunchbox, the way she spoke, all the quiet signals that whispered, "You don't quite belong here." And when she got to university, because she did, the differences didn't disappear, they just shifted. She was suddenly surrounded by students who spoke the unspoken language of advantage. Those who already had internships lined up through family connections, who knew how to network, how to navigate, how to belong. Now, she hadn't grown up inside that world, she was learning it in real time. And that's the unspoken truth about education inequality. It's not just about grades or league tables. It's about cultural capital. It's about having the keys to doors you don't even know exist. Now think about it this way. If we were told this at school, maybe of us probably would have banked it off earlier on and thinking, well, that's not my path. Maybe I need to focus on building my own thing here, building my own business, because this is never going to get me where I need to get. But anyway, let's carry on. So, thinking about that, how does me and you and people like I'm mentored and the many people I speak to and you listening survive a system that wasn't built for us? A system that, let's be honest, it often sets us up to fail. And by the way, if you've navigated this system and you're in a job and you're being successful and you're going through the ranks and you can see that you're saving something, this is the time to say, well done. Well done. Massive applaud, because you were not meant to be a success. You were set up for fail. This is a system that has set us up for fail from the minute you're born. So if you're doing really well and you've got some disposable income, and I'm yet to come to that. Be prepared. I've got real stats today. Real stats like I usually do, but these ones are like the take a seat and just digest that stats. Anyway, so well done for those who have navigated this system. You've done right. You've never cheated. and you're in a job and you're successful in every single thing you're doing, well done. And I really pray that God give you the strength and the courage to keep breaking those walls. Break those walls. So we keep going. We keep going because even when the odds are stacked, we show up, we push through. And that in itself, showing up, refusing to be erased, is resistance. That's why stories like hers, that's why stories like mine and stories like yours matter. So, because behind every statistic is a real person trying to climb a ladder that others were born on top of. But for now, I want to share the real stats, the real hardcore data, to perhaps make you think and to reevaluate where you are. So anyway, for me, during my research, class remains one of the most powerful and persistent barriers to opportunities in the UK. Despite being one of the world's wealthiest nations, the UK ranks amongst the most unequal in terms of wealth and income. Let me break it down to you this way. Income inequality, this is from the stats I've gathered. In 2022, the average disposable income for the bottom 20% was 13,218. Now, let's go for the top 20%. This is disposable income, 83,687. 83,000. This is over 6 times higher even after taxes and benefits. Surely is this a system that's working? Anyway, let's carry on. The richest 1% continue to increase their share of total income, peaking at 14.7% in 2007, significantly higher than countries like Belgium, which is at 7%, I beg your pardon, and Sweden, or at 8%. Wealth inequality, according to the Office for National Statistics, in 2020 to 2022, the top 10% of households held 43% of all wealth, and the bottom 50% held just 10%. To be in the top 1%, a household needed at least 3.12 million, about equal to the combined wealth of half the population. And some estimates suggest the real figures is even higher, as the ultra-wealthy are often underrepresented in official data. As they do. So, in terms of regional disparities, we all already are aware of the prices. Property accounts for 51% of total wealth, driven by high house prices. In regions like the Northeast and Scotland, pension wealth is more dominant. Now, while rising house prices in some areas have narrowed gaps slightly, the divide remains deep. And when it comes to education, because really education is my passion, and I know I was fed a lie that it's going to be it's going to solve your problems. It's the great equaliser. Just carry on. Just go back and work 10 times harder. 10 times harder. You have to work 10 times harder. Study hard, because this is gonna get you out of any. I'll stop there. Right, back to education inequality and class segregation. I don't want to be in problems. So, the education system reflects and reinforces this divide. Let's just break it down this way. Just 6.4 of students in England attend private schools. But, here's the but. These schools receive 15% of total school resources. Of course, as they do. This creates a two-tier system, one that opens door to elite universities, powerful networks and influence, and one that doesn't. Now you can see why I'm applauding you if you've really managed to navigate this system and you're doing well. Honestly, well done. Well done. Keep going. Keep going. We are rooting for you. Keep going. Now, private school students are vastly overrepresented at Oxford, Cambridge, and in positions of leadership across public life, as they do. Those careers. Now, I don't even want to talk about careers. As you know, I've shared many of my experiences. Because when you meet these elite students, and when they're coming in and they're frustrated and you're thinking, hang on a second, we didn't even start in the same level playing field, and now you want to frustrate me at my work environment because I'm good at my job. Hang on a second. This is telling me something. This is speaking volumes to me. And that's the power of faith. That's the power of knowing you are the power. Forget the money that has got them there. You are the power. You are enough to make that difference. It's never about the money. It's never about buying into a class or a system. It's about knowing who you are and whose you are. And knowing that you can do anything. You do not need the money to get where you've got to. Somebody else needed that money. Somebody else was in a sprint. Somebody else the red carpet was already displayed. While you've had to wove your own red carpet for somebody else to come and step and trample on. But you've still got there. You've still got there at the same time. Yet they have the guts to try and make you feel a certain way. Anyway, let's carry on. I don't want to get too emotional. Yes, bursaries exist, but access to private education still overwhelmingly favors the affluent. As you know, you go to the jobs, they are the ones there. Privilege isn't just about money. It's about the confidence. It's about the connections and assumptions that comes with it. Those things that last a lifetime. That's what they say. But I want to but this, for me, that's the beauty of facts, because it tells you and you can see it. You can see that, yes, some of these people have had, it's been a life given to them. It's already, here you go. The script has worked for them. But something along the way, there is a power there that they themselves can't deny. But we'll carry on. Now, I want to go to my own story of how these things work, because I feel this is important to share from a point of, if maybe you've had a similar story like me, where you've come from a country that perhaps has been tarnished in many ways, and it's never a place where anybody looks like there's anything worth even considering or looking at or even visiting. But that's where I'm from. And because history has told us, that's where I come from. As people were reading Shakespeare and being told about Romeo and Juliet and being in love and seeing white picket fences, houses, I was in the heart of darkness. I was reading Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness and being told how where I've come from is so unworthless. But anyway, that's not my point. My point is, let's get back to my story. So, in my last series, I told you I was accepted to study at the University of Liverpool, which was a dream come true for me. But even there, I carried the weight of where I came from. And the reality that I was navigating a world not designed for people, with people like me in mind. Now, the system didn't just expect me to succeed. It expected me to prove I deserved to be there every step of the way. But like my mentee and so many others, I kept going, because despite the barriers, we rise. Despite this system, we rise, because we believe in the power of education, not just as an institution, but as a tool of transformation. Because every time we push back against inequality, every time we speak our truth, we chip away at the structures that were never meant to serve us. Our stories matter, and through them change begins. So let me go back. Because as shared in my last series, after completing my access course exams, I received an offer from Liverpool. I was absolutely elated. Like many of us, I wholeheartedly believed the narrative we are fed, that education, especially in the UK, is the greatest equaliser. That if you just work hard, success will follow. And this, I'll have to say, is the biggest lie ever. Anyway, My first semester was everything I dreamed it would be. I was engaged. I was inspired. I was thriving. But what I didn't know was that while I was building my future, the enemy was busy plotting to tear it all down. Yes. Now, just as I was about to complete my first year with top marks, I received a letter from the university's finance department. It stated that my fee status had changed. Apparently, because I'd only been in the UK for just over a year, I no longer qualified as a home student. I was now being classed as an international student, and that meant I was expected to pay international fees. At that time, those fees were around 10,000 a year. Now, let me give you some context here, because I think it's important for those people who maybe you don't understand how the education system works in higher education, or what goes on in higher education, and how these universities have managed to keep themselves afloat, and despite the sometimes issues with money that a lot of education establishments are having. So anyway, UK universities set their own fees for international, which are non-EU students, which are significantly higher than the flat rate home fees. Some of you might already be aware. Back then, I think there was around $3,000 for your course per year. Now, it's obviously significantly high. It's at least over 9,000, depending on the course. Obviously, if you're doing medicine, then that's a different kettle, but that's quite expensive. Anyway, international fees can range from 18,000 a year and upwards, especially at prestigious red bricks universities like Liverpool. And unlike home students, there's no government subsidy or student loan support available for most international students. And if you remember, obviously, Liverpool is, it's a good university. And the prospects for job and everything, it's a great place to be. Now, this news came as a shock. It was devastating. My mom simply couldn't afford it. I still remember it vividly. Being escorted out of the university library in tears, not because I failed, not because I lacked potential, but because of a technicality. In fact, my memory still I remember a friend I used to have who still reminds me how I was such a laughingstock being escorted out of the university library. In tears, the security, they marched down and came. Can you imagine? I remember that time, it was exam time, so you can imagine the embarrassment. I felt like I'm a thief or something, like I'd stolen something, I'd done some crime just because I wanted education. They'd got the security people to come and find me in the library because they decided that I'm now banned from the library because I haven't paid. So you can imagine, and at the exam time, everybody's busy revising, the library is packed. So there I was. This was a big library, and they came and escorted me like some thief. Oh, setbacks and challenges. Woo! I've already talked about setbacks and challenges. So yeah, some of us, as I told you, this is just the top bits of some of the things I've had to go through in my life. Anyway, so this happened to me because of, I call it what it is, bureaucracy. Now, the promise of a better life, of breaking generational cycles, of achieving something for myself, really felt like it was slipping away. I felt humiliated, defeated. The shame of it all was unbearable. I knew I was capable, but here I was, back at square one. Not because I didn't try, but because of the many becauses that so many of us face. But thank God for praying mothers. Really, I want to take a moment to applaud you. And to applaud the women who are like my mother. The ones who know that they have to do things right. And to do things right is to go to your prayer place and to say why and to ask divine guidance and protection. and not to beat the system in other ways, in other careless ways or careless ways. But my mom, she didn't give up on me. God rest her soul. She prayed. She fought. And through her faith and sheer determination, a compassionate MP, God bless him so much. And this is the thing, this MP intervened. And this is the thing, because sometimes I meet people who, yes, I know racism is there and all the other things, but let's be honest, there's some really good people. You've got to give credit where it's due. There's some decent people. There's some decent human beings. In fact, some of them are more decent than my own people, than my own flesh and blood. Remember, this is the Truth Speaking podcast. And that's it. You've got to give credit where it's due. Just because the system is broken, it doesn't mean you also go. Because if you know you have subscribed to, you want divine guidance, you've got to follow the biblical principles. The biblical principles are very, very clear. Which means my mom knew she's not going to cheat. We're not going to cheat the system. But let's put this to a prayer altar. Let's pray about it and then see if we're going to get some guidance. And she did. The MP, God bless this man, as I told you, God will send people to you to surprise you. That's why I know I'm not here by fluke. I'm here because it's been designed for me to be here. I'm here because of the people like my mom who taught me that whenever things are difficult, never try to cheat. Don't cheat that system, because the system is already cheated. It's already a defiled system. The best thing for you to do is go to your prayer place. Open a prayer and leave it to the Most High. Because the Most High sees. He sees what's going on. He knows what's going on. So he'll tell you. And you can ask him, you brought me here. Have you brought me here to shame? Or why am I here? Ask God those questions. Anyway, this MP argued our case, rightly pointing out that my mother and stepfather were UK taxpayers, and as the child, deserved the right to access education. Now, my mother was granted the right to work in the UK and had been since 1998. And this is a little bit of a story about her. She was an amazing woman, amazing. Retraining for her registered general nurse course, completing an adaptation as was required for any newly recruited registered nurses at that time. And this was a woman, she was already, when she came here, she was 48. So you can imagine, you've had to leave your country, you've had to leave everything you're familiar with, some of your children, to come and start again for better prospects for your children, because she could see young girls like me, there's no hope. Anyway, I believe this was the time, the Tony Blair era of recruiting overseas nurses to NHS. Mind you, my mom herself was also expected to start afresh, like a newly trained nurse, because of the same system that recruits from abroad, but makes it clear the education here is advanced, and therefore your previously gained knowledge, experience, skills do not match up, and a retraining is required. At 48. So anyway, these stories my mother shared about her struggles in the cold and having to do another retraining as part of the adaptation process, they still linger in the background. Mind you, this was a woman who had worked across many international humanitarian crises, sat at many international humanitarian crisis boards, had trained many woke and diverse women in healthcare centers and hospitals, including leading many major hospitals in Kenya and neighboring countries, including opening and running her own medical practice in Kenya. That in itself is a whole book. Now, this wonderful, amazing mother that I had, God rest her soul in peace, many times, when I hear that song by Clear Soul, thank you for sending me an angel. That was my mom. And I know and I pray she's an angel in heaven, because this world did not deserve a woman like her. Anyway, not to get too emotional, but back to the facts, because I think it's important. So I wanted to bring that, to give you that scenario. And by the way, while you're on the topic of taxes, it's worth noting that on average, immigrants in the UK contribute more in taxes than they receive in public services. Just putting it out there, just in case anybody's wondering or thinking, oh yeah, they're busy doing this, doing that. And there's a difference between immigrants and migrants and refugees. You go do your research. I'm not going to go on to that. That's another. I'm not interested. I am not interested. The many stories I've heard and people thinking, oh, this and you came here. No, actually, in fact, I need to clarify this. I came in the UK. I flew by Emirates and then I transferred to British Airways. Just let me put that out there, because I know some people, they do talk some nonsense and they think because they say Africa is starving, so I'm supposed to have been living in a tree with very little. Who knows? I'm going to leave that to you. Back to my facts. In fact, immigrants make a greater net physical contribution than UK tax-born payers. Just some additional facts to keep in mind. In 2020, immigrants paid approximately 20 billion in taxes. This is significantly higher than the cost of public services they use. Back to my personal stories very quickly. Eventually, I was granted home student status and became eligible for student loans. By that time, I'd already lost 2 years. 2 years. It's loitering, thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Oh, Lord, why have you brought me here? Should have left me in Kenya. Anyway, I had to start again in 2003. I enrolled at the University of Hull, where the cost of living was more manageable. I switched courses and began studying management and marketing, something I grew to thoroughly enjoy. And that's obviously where it wasn't the original plan, but it was the path God carved out for me, because I actually met my husband now, the amazing man that he is. I met him in Hull. So when I speak about disparity, I don't do so from theory. I speak from lived experience. Without faith, without that strong connection and support system, without understanding how the system isn't built with fairness at its core, and knowing that I have the power to decide how this goes, and my mother telling me that when you have faith, walk with faith, forget this physical, forget what you're seeing. Even as I painted that, the reason why I'm giving you these stats is so you know that it wasn't just handed to me. No, there's work I've had to put in, the spiritual work to get where I've got. And even if I've got there, I've met the Oxford and the Cambridge, and they're still coming at me thinking, and I'm thinking, but you sprinted ahead. I've just had to run 10 marathons. And now you want me out of this role because of what? Anyway, I don't want to go into there. But my point is, without faith, without a strong support system, I might have been another bright mind lost to injustice. But by God's grace, because I know there's many people out there, very bright. I meet many very bright people. But this system has just closed the door, and they might have just decided to accept it. Don't accept it. Go back and ask yourself the reason why you're here. The reason why life has chosen you to be here at this time, at this moment. Because by God's grace, I went on to achieve my postgraduate qualification in education and teaching. So yes, while my story had a redemptive turn, there are many others who I know out there who weren't so lucky. Stories far worse than mine. And that's why we need to keep having this conversation. That's why I'm debunking these lies, so others don't ever internalize failure that never belonged to them in the first place. Ask yourself those stories from childhood. Ask yourself, as you were going from childhood up to the age you are, where was it that perhaps you could see, if you're looking at that curve bell, you're thinking, I was supposed to have this bump, but oh no, it was supposed to be a linear line, but oh no. They're important to go back and then come back and think, okay, now with that mindset, what do I need to do? Now, to further illustrate how class background affects job prospects, because I think this one is important, I want to examine one powerful industry, journalism. Key statistics on class and background in UK journalism, this is from 23 to 25. In fact, a report in 2022 by the National Council for Training of Journalists found that 8 80%, 80, of journalists had a parent in one of the top 3 occupational groups, up from 75% in 21. By contrast, only 2% came from the lowest 2 occupational groups, even though these groups represent 20% of the wider UK workforce. Fast forward to 25, a survey revealed that 71% to 72% of UK journalists now come from privileged background, while only 9 to 12% hail from working class families. Now picture that story of those 2 children and where they started from. So if one of the child went into journalism and the other one went into journalism, who do you think has got the job? So money keeps money. Anyway, the divide runs deeper in national and international media. Just 9% of journalists at this level come from working class origins, while 72% are from affluent backgrounds, as they do. Meanwhile, only 22% of journalists attended private secondary schools, compared to 6% of students nationally. This profession remains one of the least socially mobile in the UK. In fact, the Sutton Trust ranked newspaper columnists 5th in Oxbridge recruitment rates, and a 2013 report revealed only 11% of journalists were from working class background, a number that has barely shifted in over a decade. Now, even more concerning is the lack of ethnic and gender diversity in senior roles. Now, I don't want to go there just yet. Many women and minority journalists leave the profession by age 50, unable to break through systemic barriers. Overall, the sector remains dominated by a narrow socio-economic elites, limiting both opportunity and the diversity of perspectives in UK newsroom. So, my question is, with these stats, what this means for media and for you? Now, with this knowledge, here's the question that should trouble us all. What does it mean when the media you consume is shaped by the same people, time and time and time again? For the last decade, 10 decades, it's been the same story. I call this the high concentration of media power among elites. This is not a theory, it's the reality. In the UK, this is how it looks like. These are the ones who dominate: the Daily Mail, the Metro, which is the DMG media, News UK, the Sun, the Times, Reach PLC, Daily Mirror, Express. Together, let me give you the real facts. They control the percentage, 90%, 90 of national newspaper circulations, and account for 40% of the audience reach of the UK's top 50 online news brands. And don't give me that nonsense that, we don't read it. No, you don't have to read it. Just a flash, just an image is enough. It's that moment, it captures it captivates you, and it shapes your narrative. Let's stop lying to ourselves. Now, these outlets are often owned by billionaires and dynastic families. Ownership equals influence, and influence shapes public opinions. As I've said, it's facts, controls narratives, and often suppresses dissenting views to protect vested interest. And it doesn't stop at traditional media. Let's talk about digital platforms like Google and X and Meta. These act as the new gatekeepers. Yes, X is fire. Every time I pray, Lord Jesus, protect my eyes so I don't see anything that's going to contaminate me today when I go to X, because, oh my word, that platform, woo! Lord help us, we're in spiritual battle times. Anyway, they prioritize certain content, suppress others, and frame how we interpret the world, all while claiming neutrality. So, how do you feel now? Anyway, this isn't just about journalism. This is about the same concentration of power in existing publishing spaces like the banking, the legal industry. It's across the board. This is what they do. They start from those 2 children, as I told you, one here, the other one here. It's never. This divide is only going to get even bigger. Now, for those from working class backgrounds, the odds are often stacked against them before they even begin. So here is a cliffhanger and a question to carry into the next episode. How do you know? And you really have to test this. How do you know what you see on TV, in newspapers and online isn't just a carefully crafted illusion designed to manipulate, designed to distract, or even control you? How do you know? Now let that just sit for a moment. Now I believe this, many of this would like to control us, our decisions, our beliefs, and really they do. They do, because when we're casting those votes, when we are, saying we're expressing our legal rights, is it really our legal rights? Or anyway, I'm not going to go on about that, because even voting as a woman, it's back to my story. But no one can control you unless you let them. That I know for a fact. That's why I do what I do some of the times. I check in, I double check my facts. A lot of these people, they can try to influence you, but you choose how you respond. You choose what actions to take. You choose whether to believe, resist, or investigate further. So I really urge you, do your homework. Cross-check sources. Be curious, ask questions, use the tools that exist to find truth. And if the odds are against you, then remember, we either accept that we'll have to work twice, even 10 times as hard, or we give up before we've even begun, because it feels too damn hard to make it. Because if people are already sprinting and we're running marathon after marathon, and there's a hurdle in every sort of mile we cross in that marathon, and it's exhausting just talking about it. But in that very choice lies our power. Because if we persist, we don't just make it, we remake the system for those who come after us. And I'm doing this because I think it's important to have these discussions. This is why it's important to debunk the lies. Debunk the lies and find a way, find a strategy to use, so you know that you're coming into an unequal level. You will never level up, but there's something you can do about it. And I want to end by saying, you heard the stats. You know the odds, I beg your pardon. Because I think it's important to really understand and challenge ourselves and challenge the mainstream narrative, question what's fed to us, and reclaim our ability to decide for ourselves. Because at the moment, a lot of us are not. And what I know from some of the stories I've shared, I've realized how much power I have than I think. So if I can do that, I'm sure you can do that. But only if you choose to use it. So I feel I've made many points, and obviously I'll attach some of the resources, but feel free to come back with any challenges, any questions. But what I want to say as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a powerful reminder from Romans chapter 12, verse 2, which says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." In a world that often feeds us lies about education, class, and justice, this could be your call to question. This could be your call to unlearn, and most importantly, to think critically. Transformation starts in the mind. So don't just absorb the narrative. Challenge it. Renew your mind, and let that renewal lead you to truth, action, and change. My name is Olivia Bassi, and this is Empowerment Junction. Bye for now.